Alright, Diablo 4 players, Season 8, we've got the powers equipped. Let's go and show off the brand new content called the Incursions. So, we're actually at one right now. So these can spawn anywhere on the map. There's no real indication other than this little icon here. So you can see this one is starting in 18 seconds. And if you do get there early, you can just kind of clear out the monsters. You can see there's another player over here. And pretty much your goal in the new mechanic for Season 8 is to acquire these powers. Now, I'm going to be straight up with you guys. You don't get any good powers till way later, and I mean like way later. Pretty much, if it's not tormented, you cannot get any of the cool powers, which basically comes down to requiring you to at least get to torment. Now, that's not too difficult. But what is difficult is we get less XP. We get less loot overall. The monsters are much harder. So for starters, what we're going to have to do is kill a bunch of monsters. So we're just at this area. You can see there's other players here as well. And we're going to go kill some monsters. So there's all these apparitions over here. We're going to go eliminate them. And we do have one of the special boss powers equipped. We have one of the big ones that's acquired from the world boss. If I did not have the world boss one, I actually wouldn't be playing the same build that I'm playing. But how it works is I need to do damage over time. When I do damage over time, it does have a Shava's poison that comes out. I'll go over all the skills and kind of how the system works in a moment, but I want the gameplay to show off first because, well, the gameplay is the #1 thing, right? So I'm gonna be honest, guys, there is some good, there is some bad. Now, let's go ahead and start off with the good. I think the boss powers are pretty cool. The problem is you don't get any of them because it requires you to kill a boss that is only available in Torment. So for most players, you will not be able to engage with the content until you do specifically that or a world boss. Now, the problem is that if you're wanting a very specific power, like the world bosses, they don't really spawn at a rate where, like, you know, I can just wait and do it. By the way, you need to click on these little eyes for the things to spawn in. But we're going to be deleting things real fast. This is only on hard difficulty. So one thing that is bad is the game scales to the players that don't exist. So what I mean by that is, like, I could do all of this in penitent difficulty, it's no problem, but when the boss comes out, the boss is meant to be fought with multiple players, because I was pretty much deleting everything, even on the hardest difficulty that you'll have access to before Torment, which is Penitent. You cannot just straight up play Penitent, or Torment 4, the game won't allow you. You can only go up to Penitent. But basically, there are these bosses that come in, and these bosses have an insane amount of HP, especially if you're playing solo. Like now that we have this group, it'll probably be much, much easier. But we are playing a build that does damage over time, and the reason why we want damage over time is because we want to be able to get these little poison things to kind of shoot out here. You can see we're actually doing really good damage with our build right now. But if you go to higher difficulties, maybe there's not that many people at Penitent. But so now Belial's moving to a new location, so we're gonna go ahead and kind of chase him down. You know what this reminds me of? If any of you guys have played Monster Hunter, it kind of reminds me of Monster Hunter, where like you get the big giant monster though, and he kind of runs away, and you got to go find him again, and got to go attack him. But it's not like that big of a deal. As far as the mechanic goes, you can see the little like diamonds over here. This is where you go. You can see where it says Incursion. You just go to the area and you just kill the monsters, and then the little bar will fill up. And since we actually have a group this time, it'll be way faster because I actually lowered the difficulty because there was just no one in Penitent. I don't know if it just has to do with the servers not being able to sync up. So I'm pretty sure that you can play with people outside of the difficulty that you select if you're playing solo. But we'll go ahead and kill these with the group. So yeah, again, we're just trying to look for the little diamond shapes because there's this little like eye. You see where it says Betraying Eye? So we're going to go ahead and click on that. So we'll click on the little eye. It's going to spawn in a bunch of monsters. Again, you just kill the monsters. It's nothing too special in terms of like difficulty. Like, I wouldn't say this is hard. The bosses are challenging. But if you're in a group, honestly, they're too easy. But if you do this solo, it's like legitimately, I'm not even kidding when I say it's almost impossible. In the earlier stages of the game, you're not going to get it done. But as far as it goes, because yesterday we were talking about a lot of people being kind of negative about Season 8. And the reason why a lot of people had a lot of negativity is like, okay, you're going to nerf loot. You're going to make everything harder. You're nerfing XP as well. You know, I'm going to be honest with you guys. It does take a lot longer to level up for sure. Even if you go ahead and, you know, I think we already have a potion pop. But when you go pop a potion, even if we pop like the potion here, it still just takes a really long time. But one thing that we are missing is the urn. Like we get those like ashes so that you normally get like a bonus, right? So you can see this boss is going to come out in a second. But yeah, the leveling process takes a lot longer. So if you do like the slower leveling process, that's cool. But the thing is that the blue items and yellow items are still useless. They said that they're supposed to have blue items with 2 affixes, and the rare is supposed to have 3. Didn't work. It's PTR, keep in mind. Things are subject to change. But they said that that was one thing that they were going to do. Does it really matter? No, absolutely not. Look, I'm literally like about 2 hours in gameplay. Two hours plus in gameplay. Like I think like 2.5 hours. My entire thing is legendary. They did not fix the itemization in terms of like legendary or nothing, because that's just the way that Diablo works. Now, I would love for them to be able to make yellow items and blue items to have some sort of purpose in the game, because like why drop them, especially in like World Tier 4. Now we just got, we got a legendary. These are actually quite rare though, to be honest. What I actually ended up having to do to get the aspects is I actually had to go to some dungeons and I had to farm them. And the reason why is like, well, I was playing on Penitence, so like getting Aspect of Disobedience is like pretty much a must. Okay, so now we have Belial over here. Now we get to fight the big bad Belial. Now there is a Omega Supreme edition of him. That one you can't even access until very, very late. And if you want to fight the hardest difficulty of that, you know, I'll be honest, I don't think anyone's even close at the moment of me making this video, because it takes so long to level up. You can see everyone over here, like, I'm pretty fast, right? We're 32 right now, we got a 16 at level 8, like, there's another person 24. It takes a lot longer to level. And the way I see it is, a lot of people didn't even hit Paragon, like, 300, right? Like, you know, I played the game a lot. I haven't hit Paragon 300 this season because I've been playing all 6 classes. But it still just takes a really long time to hit it. And if they're making it even slower, well, you can see where some people are getting upset. And that's essentially where a lot of people felt like there was a lot of negativity with, you know, Diablo announcing you're going to make World Tier 4 way harder, which makes it so if you're not playing a meta build or a good build, that could kind of ruin the casual player base, right? Because it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Okay, we got some gold items, or some yellow items, but a lot of the stuff I've been getting off of this pretty weak. We got some temporary recipes, but I want to show you guys all the powers and talk a little bit more about it. But in terms of like the seasonal gameplay, right, that's all that's there as far as I'm aware of. If there is more, someone let me know down below, but I've been pretty much just kind of doing those. Now, is this the best form of XP? I've been kind of just doing other forms of content. Like I said, I was doing nightmare dungeons or just regular dungeons just so I can get the aspects, because the rarity of getting legendaries is quite rare. I know, like I said, within 2 hours I had everything, but when you compare it to Season 6 was just like raining legendaries, man. It was just candy coming out from the sky. But it definitely is lower, but it's not at a point where like, oh, a rare item is actually worth getting. No, dude, it's not. It's basically the same. It's just that you have more garbage because you only really want legendaries, right? So again, what that makes people do is you have to go into the Codex of Power, and maybe you have to search for whatever one that you want, and then you find out which dungeon is going to be the one that you want to do, because if you mouse over, it'll tell you which one it drops. So like, since I'm playing Incinerate, I was kind of looking for that one. There's like one, if you type in, like, you go to Codex of Power and type in Incinerate, whatever, you get the aspects that you want. Some of them you just have to get randomly as a drop. Now, one thing that I want to give them as some feedback is I liked it before when we would just go to the Green Helltide, right, the Witchcraft power area. We would just go there and we would just kill stuff, and then there'd be some legendaries that would drop, and then I'd be like, oh, cool, I got this thing for Frozen Ore. Let me go play with this for a little bit. Oh, I got another aspect for this. And it let me kind of swap my stuff, and it felt way, way better. But now, since the drops are way worse, and then on top of the game is way harder, I need to go, like, I need these aspects. If you don't give me any aspects, you just do 0 damage, because that's just how Diablo works. Everything is a times multiplier. So you really are forced to either get really lucky and just get all the aspects for whatever thing that you want, or you're going to have to go do dungeons. And I actually don't think that this is that bad to do the dungeon one time, but it gives you the most garbage roll, like, on the aspect, unless you, again, get it as a random drop. But because it's not going to be a GA, it'll never be the top drop anyway, so whatever. But it still gives you something. Like, this is the lowest roll. It's still 50, you know, X compared to getting 90X, which would be huge. But you do need to go ahead and farm for a bunch of your aspects. Another thing that I would say is going to be rough for a lot of players is, if you remember in Season 7, we had those new occult gems, right? That would give you bonuses to specifically the all resistance and armor. Those are going to be gone. That's going to make it way harder. Now, we do have these new boss powers, and let me go and show you guys how it works. So you have one like super boss power. The super boss power is considered the main. You see how it has an orange main and modifier. So you can see also the text is kind of highlighted. So this is Ashava, and I have killed Ashava, and that's how you get the powers. In the very beginning, though, you're going to get all of the blue powers by just doing exactly what we showed off, which there's an incursion right here in 17 seconds. Now, it's random on which one that spawns in, therefore it correlates to which one that you actually get, because it says defeat Black Mailer here to unlock this. This one says defeat Flesh Reaper. So all of these sort of things are unlocked by those. So that's how you get your powers. Now, as far as these other powers, you can see these are the ones that I don't have. This is a world boss. This one over here, another world boss. I can't get these unless I do the world boss. And honestly, most of them are not very good, with the exception of, I would say, Ashaba and some of the other world bosses. Like, there's other ones where it's like, when you use this skill, you get a crystal that taunts enemies. You know what that is? That is literally a recycled rogue one. So I totally get it where people are coming from in terms of saying, oh, it's a lot of this is all recycled content. They're just bosses and other things that they've done. Hey, at the end of the day, I think getting some of the powers like the Lilith Blood Wave, that is a really cool thing. So that's the good. I think the powers are actually pretty cool. The problem that I have and the bad is that it takes so long to unlock these. Because remember, you don't get these until Torment, and it takes so long to get there. And in fact, we can just open up some of the chat over here. But I've seen a lot of people kind of complaining that the leveling takes way too long, and other people saying that it's too hard. And they're like, dude, I can't get these until way later. Why would I want to play? I think to give us some things to look forward to, they can have, like, let's say 4 boss powers that maybe you unlock in Torment. But I think majority of these, especially because a lot of these don't really do anything. And I know I haven't really went over all their effects because I want to make a video dedicated going over all the effects, because otherwise this video will be half an hour long. I'm going to kind of sum it up. The good boss powers are all from the Torment. Like, if you want Lilith's Blood Wave, you gotta defeat Lilith. And I think that that's cool. That makes sense. This could be one of those like super cool ones that you can unlock later. But I think some of these other ones, like with the exception of Ashava's Poison Breath, a lot of them are really weak that you can get kind of earlier on. And remember, I got lucky. The world boss spawned in. What if the world boss spawned in and it was one of the world bosses that I don't really care about? Well, then I'm just out of luck until I randomly get that. But you have the main power, right? So the main power is in orange, and that is equipped at the top. So you have one main power, and then you have 3 minor powers. The minor powers, don't look at these via the colors. It's basically how it's sorted is the blues are required from just doing these incursions. The orange ones are required via the world bosses and some of like the lesser tormented bosses, and then the other ones are from like the big layer bosses, basically like Lilith and the super, like, you know, I believe like Duriel is also considered one of the super ones. So these are like the major bosses. So think of it kind of like that, like your progression is set up that way. But the blue powers are so weak. This one over here is actually kind of one of the better ones. So it revolves around basic. So if I equip this one in the basic, if I equip this one over here, it's going to use it in the main. But if I put it over here, it's going to be considered in the other section. So it's going to be in the modifier one. So you can see where it says modifier gain movement speed versus the basic skill applies that. So there's almost in here, I believe they said there was 24. Essentially these are 48 powers because you get to choose, do you want the big one or the minor one. But remember, you can only have one major one and then all of the rest are minor. So the one that I was using in the gameplay was called Ashava's Poison Breath. And I think this one's actually pretty good for leveling. As far as them being viable in the endgame, I don't know. But what it does is it makes so if I hit an enemy that is affected by damage over time, it's going to spawn a wave of acid that does a bunch of poison damage, and then it can do even more damage based on the target's current life affected by damage over time. So basically, this is how I'm getting a lot of my damage. It's actually great, but I got lucky with this one. The rest of them, this one's actually pretty good though, I'll admit, but some of the other ones, like when you cast a summoning skill or summon a reinforcement that taunts one of your enemies, you just get 40% damage reduction in your main. The other one is that your summons get to do a 5x more damage. And to upgrade these, you need what's called, here, I'll put it over here because I think they show it. It's called Spectral Ash. So Spectral Ash is a new form of currency, and how you get it is just by playing exactly what I was doing before. So think of it as literally as Restless Rot. You just go play in the Incursion area. Again, these happen all over the map. You're going to be teleporting like crazy in Season 8. But basically, you just go over here and you keep on doing more and more of these, and you'll get all the blue powers eventually. The orange ones, you're going to have to do the world bosses and whatever boss. But remember, you have to be in Torment to do these. So pretty much as far as leveling goes, it's so much harder for so many reasons. So you get less loot, you get less XP, you are less powerful overall, Because if you remember in Season 7, with all those Witchcraft powers, dude, you could just blaze through the content. You get that poison AoE one, you're playing Walking Simulator. We were walking on sunshine throughout most of it. Here, the bosses are much more challenging, especially if your build is not like a meta build. You may run into the situations where like, oh man, you got to go back and just do some of the dungeons to get the aspects. I really recommend getting like Disobedience. That's a really good one that's like in the middle. But pretty much to kind of sum up how I feel about it, you feel weaker overall, and then everything else feels harder. Now, that can be a good or a bad thing, but a lot of times I really didn't feel like it was hard to the point where like I had to like dodge abilities. It's just like a numbers check. It's specifically when I was playing in Penitent and I would do these incursions, I legitimately could not kill the boss. It's impossible to kill the boss on the hardest difficulty by yourself because the game scales, and if I go to Penitent, there was literally 0 people there. So I don't know if that was just unlucky, but that's the reason why I changed it to hard difficulty. You do get more XP, but it's not like if I go from normal to Penitent that I was like just blasting through levels like I did last season. In the same amount of time that it took me to get to level 30 in the current season, remember I'm talking about PTR right now, I got to level like 30, I would have been already max level. I would have been starting slamming pits at that time. So it definitely is going to be a slower leveling experience. Now, that's a good or bad thing. However, there's one thing that someone really pointed out, because I was checking out what people were feeling about it. See, a lot of people are like, dude, it's way too slow. The game is crashing a lot, but to be honest, it's PTR. That's fine, as long as it doesn't crash when the actual game starts. But this person's talking about hard to expert. Over here, the jump was surprising. The quality of drops is met. Yes, you get a lot less loot. That is one thing that you're going to definitely notice. But we're not even in like Torrent. Once we get to Torrent, I really don't feel like loot is going to be that big of a deal. It's just the early game feels really bad in terms of loot. So a lot of people were saying, yeah, if we're going to get less loot, why play an action RPG? It's the way the game is. They wanted to slow things down. Last season, was it too much? I'll be honest, I felt like last season there's too much, but at the same time, it was a lot of junk. I would rather have less loot, but more valuable loot, if that makes any sense. This person actually said exactly what I mentioned before, is that until you get to Torment 1, you don't get to use any of those powers because you don't get G8s. You don't get any of your loot to be actually good. You're tempering things. A lot of these things don't really get good till later in the game. So basically, it's not even like aspirational content when like you can't even get the powers. I think this is what I would do, and this is my suggestion to make it way better. All right, so these powers, you can have like 2 or 3 of them that are like Torment 4 or like Torment only, but the rest of them, just let the players have fun, man. What's the difference between, someone that wants to play more casually, getting the power early on? Because remember, you still got to level these things up to be good in the first place. But some of these powers over here, again, they're so weak. When I cast and evade, I get to do like a small amount of damage. As far as like the damage numbers go, I mean, this is over 2 seconds. What is it? It does like 390. Like you get basically like another attack, but you can only use it when you use a mobility skill. So every once in a while you get like one extra thing. But a lot of these are so conditional that like you using evade or you use a mobility skill versus like the Witchcraft powers, they're just constantly like free damage every 2 seconds, versus like these, you have like some sort of condition that needs to be met. It's like a damage on Tuesdays all over again. So to be honest with you guys, I totally get where the negativity is coming from, but let me know what you guys would like to see to be fixed. As far as like the in-game seasonal content, I don't see myself doing these incursions for 10 hours a day and being like, wow, this is a great new season. There's nothing there other than you just kill monsters. There's no brain activity that needs to go, and I don't need to plan any of these things. I always go back to like a Path of Exile League where it makes you think about what you want to do. These are puzzle pieces that you need to fit. And I like that this boss power is like, okay, well, which modifier do I want? This is good. Okay, I like this. Make these more accessible earlier on. You can have 1 or 2, 3, 4 that are like end game only, then the rest, like, just let people have fun, man. That's the best way to put it. And like some of these are like, after casting 3 skills that apply crowd control, you get to do X, Y, and Z. Again, after using 3 skills, majority of players, they're already deleting things within 1 skill push, not waiting for 3. Now, maybe these will be super powerful at like pit 150 if that's even an achievable thing. They said it wasn't, but maybe these could be really powerful at the end game. But like, again, most people don't want to use like 3 different skills, or like where's this other one? I can spawn, I have to use a defensive ability, and then I get to spawn a crystal, and then I wait 3 seconds, and then it explodes. Like, this is way too long. So make these not have these like delays. There's a lot of these that just require too much little hoops to jump through to get any amount of like good damage, but we'll have to wait and see. Anyways, that's my thoughts on Season 8 so far. You guys can let me know yours down below. But if you guys enjoyed it, drop a like. If you're new here, subscribe, turn the bell. I'll see you guys in the next one.